Good morning and welcome to Thriving Survivors' first panel event in a few months. So today we're going to be talking about post-traumatic growth. So we have our guests on, Ellie, Emily, Ashley, Shumela and Jane Marie, who's just joining us now. And we've also got Victoria here from Thriving Survivors that keeps me right. And any questions you have for anyone in the panel, put it in the comments and Victoria will put them to the panel later on. So first of all, I'm going to come to you, Ashley. So Ashley, you are the Chief Executive and the founder of Thriving Survivors. And last time we did a panel event, it was during the restorative justice consultation. So give us a bit of an update where we are now, 2 months on.
Seems hard to believe it was 2 months ago, at times just flying by, but we, as of yesterday, have now published the consultation, so it is readily available and you can share that as far and wide. I'm sure Victoria will pop a wee link into the chat box so that everybody can access that. But yeah, we've came to the end of the consultation. It is now published and it really has influenced policy, and it will influence procedure and indeed service delivery across Scotland. So it's been it's quite special. It really is quite special.
It is. So the focus groups are still going strong, and obviously the consultation was named Survivors' Voices, and the purpose was to give survivors their voice and to have like-minded people, obviously people that could understand, come together and be able to talk freely. And obviously while the consultation finished, you can't shut down that door that you had opened. I mean, we've said it many times, it turned into a Pandora's box and you have created something pretty special. So the focus group have stayed together, and am I right in saying it's the group that have chosen the topic for this month? Yeah,
so essentially what we've done is we've continued the survivors' voices and created it into a platform, and that platform allows the survivors to come together and have open conversations and try and see where they want to take it and how they can change things. So bringing the group together for the first meeting, which I think was in May, we held that first meeting, and we came together and we were there for a good hour and a half talking about what do we want to do and how are we going to best move this forward. And we came up with a list of themes, if you like. So it's almost survivor takeover of all social media channels for the entire month. So this month is post-traumatic growth, and that was, I think that was quite highly voted on. I think it was almost unanimous that was what we wanted to look at first. And then obviously next month we're going to look at trauma-informed approaches from a survivor's point of view, and then we're moving on to good practice in the third sector. So we're looking at 3 full-on months of what works, what doesn't work, how can we make it better, where are survivors at in their growth journey. And yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting 3 months, but it's full-on survivor takeover. Everything that you'll see on the social channels has come from survivors' voices. Every post, comment, bit of feedback, everything has fed directly in from what they had to say.
I think that's what's quite special, isn't it? It is from the survivors themselves. So obviously this month we've already had Dave's story, and we've had lots of quotes from the focus panel, and that's the way it's going to be going forward. So now we know what this month's topic is and how we got here. I'm just going to go around the panel and let you all introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, and how you became to be involved with Thriving Survivors. So Emily, I'll come to you first because you're with Thriving Survivors.
Okay, thanks Heather. Yeah, I'm Emily. I came and knocked on Ashley's door February last year. Reason being is I've been through a lot, and I'd lost my job and everything as well on top of that, and I was in the kind of butterfly stage. Like I wasn't the middle stages where I wasn't a caterpillar and I wasn't a butterfly, and I was in that messy gooey stage of, right, I've landed here, where do I go next kind of thing. I don't know where I am, don't know what I'm doing, but it was that acceptance that I had learned survival patterns that needed to change in order to move forward. And that's what brought me to Thriving Survivors.
And you work for Thriving Survivors now, is that right?
I'm still volunteering with them, yes.
And you're a group facilitator?
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What do you do?
So I take people through the Discovering Me program. So people come through the door, they get given a mentor, and then once they've got to a certain stage, they'll come through to the Discovering Me program. Discovering Me is a brilliant program. It's total post-traumatic growth. It gives people all the tools to grow and rediscover who. For me, it's really personal now, and it's lovely to see people who do grow. The first session is probably the hardest for people because it's that realization, oh my goodness, I've forgotten myself. Like, you learn through your values and your strengths, and it gets people to really look at themselves, and some people aren't ready for that. But when they are and they come back, it's just so nice to see them then progress through it.
Oh, fantastic. So next we'll come on to Shumela.
Hi, thanks, Heather. Yeah, my name is Shamila Ahmed, and I'm Managing Director at an organisation called the Resilience Learning Partnership. We are a lived experience-led organisation as well, and we have a bit of a dual purpose. That's the way I often explain it. So we provide learning and development and education opportunities for professionals who work across health, criminal justice, education, and social care. How we do that work is our second purpose. So all of our facilitators or project leads or pretty much anyone out representing RLP has lived experience of the area that they work in, but they also have all the relevant and required academic or professional experience needed. So a real big bunch of amazing professionals out delivering work in not only the third sector now, we're working right across Scotland and the public, the third, and beginning to get into the private sector as well, around allied health and housing associations. And I'm so glad that your next month's topic is trauma-informed practice, because that's what we specialise in. We are co-authors of the National Trauma Training Plan from NES, NHS Education for Scotland, and we still work very closely delivering that work. I first met Ashley very much at the beginning of my professional journey with Resilience Learning Partnership, almost about 3 years ago, I think it was, which it doesn't feel like. And we've stayed in contact, which is great. And it's amazing to be here today, actually, and to just see what you guys have been doing for the past few years. We took part in the consultation, and it was a fantastic process for ourselves as individuals, as survivors, but also as an organisation. It was a real eye-opener and done very, very well. So yeah, really chuffed to be here today. Thank you very much for having me.
Excellent, thanks, Shumela. So Ellie, over to you. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Just enough. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Ellie, and I have experienced childhood sexual violence and also sexual violence as an adult, and also numerous other forms of trauma. And I am also a trained counsellor. So I work at Edinburgh University with lots of different clients who come with their stories. It's a real gift to have gone on this journey to come to this point. So I got in touch with Thriving Survivors back in May when I saw an Instagram post about the consultation for restorative justice. And for me to even start to contemplate the thought of what a restorative justice process might mean for me was really encouraging. I experienced sexual violence when I was a child. It was a family member, which has definitely complicated my journey through life, and never expected in any way that there might be a process or an opportunity that might allow me to have my voice and talk about the stuff that's gone on, and maybe come out of a process feeling like I had said what I needed to say. So it offered me a little bit of hope, and I wanted to get involved, and so I contacted Thriving Survivors, took part in the consultation, and I'm now part of the focus group, which has been really cool. It's been really nerve-wracking. I'm really nervous right now. And even like the topic that we're talking about today, post-traumatic growth, I think just actually being here is part of my growth process, and being part of groups, having conversations about this stuff. So that's a bit about me.
Thanks, Ellie. I think it's really brave, and all the panel events that we've hosted in March and in April, for survivors to actually come on and openly share their story with everybody watching is absolutely amazing, and it just shows such strength. So you've absolutely no reason to be nervous. It's you being here is absolutely outstanding. So I'm not sure if Jane Marie's about. Hi, Jane Marie.
Hiya, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Not bad at all. So Jane Marie, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell everyone how you get involved in Thriving Survivors?
I will do, Heather. I became involved because I had been through, I was a social worker and a counsellor, and I've got complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which I didn't know that I had. So for about 12 years, I was going through the system, and I was going through like a trauma vortex, and I just came out at the other end of it no long ago. And I came out of that by Talk Now. I was referred to Talk Now, and I've been working with a counsellor for just over a year, which has been pretty transformational. So through that, Pat then asked me, would you like to become involved in the consultation, which I did, which was fantastic on the panel. And I'm just delighted, absolutely delighted to be here. And just to kind of be in this group and in the focus group, talking about these things that I never, ever thought that I would have the voice to speak about. So that's how I became involved. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you, Maria. It's nice to see you back on the panel again.
Lovely.
So, post-traumatic growth, what does it actually mean to you? And actually, I'm going to start with you. Can you explain what post-traumatic growth is and what it means to you?
Okay, so post-traumatic growth is about learning from the experiences that you've went through, and actually then, for me, using that to propel you forward. So for me, it's Shumela. When we met, Shumela told me that you're the expert in your own experience. That's never left me, never, ever. It was probably a big turning point in my growth process, and certainly one into being a leader as well. As it was like, she's so right. Every single person that sits here today is their own expert in their own experience, and it's about how you then go on and use that and grow from it. You use those experiences as learning opportunities, and I believe I'm at a higher state of functioning as a result of those experiences. I believe I see the world differently from some other people, quite a lot of other people. Wholeheartedly embrace the fact that I am different to other people, and I think all that's been part of my post-traumatic growth process. So for me, post-traumatic growth is about growing beyond the person who was into the person who is now, and I think that's how I would sum it up.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yes. So Shumela, coming on to you then.
Very, very similar to Ashley, which won't be a surprise. I think I was thinking about this morning, and I think ultimately what it means to me is it's changed how I think. Post-traumatic growth, all of the things that I thought were deficits in me or weaknesses, or that were bad in me as well. You'll all know what that feeling feels like.
Yeah.
Have completely transformed, you know, and you still get your days where your trauma tries to come back and give you a wee bite in the backside, and that, you know, that's just part of the course. But it's fundamentally changed how I think and how I think about others as well. It's made me think that nothing's off limits, nothing is impossible.
That's amazing.
Where I was and the life that I lived, I couldn't have even imagined where I am now, you know, really couldn't have imagined it. And there's something in that. And I love the fact that Ashley, and I don't feel like the only person who thinks that they think differently. You know, I really do. I think that's why RLP has become so successful and why we're doing things in Scotland that no one else is doing and that they want to do now. And I see the change happening in the sector, and I see the move towards really valuing how we think and the insights that we have. And all of that is related to post-traumatic growth for me. I think actually post-traumatic growth and resilience are really closely related for me, because resilience was a word, or is a word, that's bandied about often. I mean, we've got it in our name, but I think it's often bandied about by the wrong people as well, and it's often attributed to people. So we usually attribute resilient qualities in poor, disadvantaged, you know, marginalised groups of people. But those exact same qualities, we in schools up and down the country, let's say, that are maybe private, or these camps that kids who go to private schools maybe attend during the summer, the exact same qualities are attributed, but they're framed as leadership. And that tells us a great deal, because look at me and Ashley, we've both went through extreme trauma and adversity. We've came through it, we've grown, and now we're both exceptional leaders, and I don't mind saying that. You know, Ashley is an exceptional leader, and I'm doing all right as well, and there is something in that as well. I think we need to recognise that. And for me, my role now is to help others who have experienced trauma realise that they are also, you know, our future leaders, and can be our future leaders. There's no limitations. As I said before, that's ultimately when you get into that kind of post-traumatic growth mindset. And if anybody's read Bruce Perry's latest book, he's calling it now post-traumatic wisdom, which I love. I think it's amazing. And that is a really great way to look at it, because what we're holding is a lot of wisdom and insight. We don't have all the answers, we know that, but we have some that have never even been explored before, because people like us haven't been at the table making those decisions or bringing those insights in, and that's changing seriously in Scotland, and it's beautiful to be.
Do you know, I love that, the wisdom side of it, because you are right, you both are brilliant leaders and are so knowledgeable and have gone on to be so powerful, and I think wisdom is the perfect word for it. So Emily, over to you. What do you think of with post-traumatic growth?
Wow, it's hard to add to what's already been said, but for me, the post-traumatic growth was the freedom to be the person that I was always meant to be. The Discover Me program especially, it gave me the freedom to not only work on myself and to give me tools that I never thought I would have to change my thinking and bring me around to give me the confidence and the self-esteem that I was, you know, always lacking in. And to then be able to be given the freedom to change that and to deliver it to other people and help them. It's just been amazing, Heather. I can't express more gratitude to Ashley and the team at Thriving Survivors. They've all been amazing. We've got it's like Ashley said before, we're like a family, and because of that, we're able to bring everybody else through this process in the family. And what I would say as well about post-traumatic growth is that for people who are struggling, it doesn't matter that you're still struggling. It's through the struggle that you grow, and it's allowing that process to happen. Although I've been given all these wonderful tools, it doesn't mean that I'm always capable of using them all the time either. Something came up for me only a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't even realize I'd been triggered until a couple of days later. I panicked at the time. My body went into that stage, and it was then that I realized I needed further help because, oh my goodness, I don't even know what this is. And then I realized it was just the way that something had been said. The person who said it probably wouldn't have thought that would cause a trigger, because it might not have triggered somebody else, but it triggered me. But what the post-traumatic growth does is it allowed me to accept that that was a trigger and go back and say, I need to work on that.
That's powerful, isn't it? And I think the fact that you've gone to Thrive on Survivors to look for help, and it's been so successful for you that you're now volunteering and helping other people, just shows how successful and the program is.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Can I just drop in here that Emily has since taken the program that I initially created and totally transformed it and did her own thing to develop it, and is now delivering it and is creating other programs in the background. Our mentoring program, she's only capturing a very, very small amount of the actual success that she's had with this program, going on to develop something and making it better than what it was. That deserves a round of applause, and is a massive part of our growth journey, and being able to share those tools with other people in a way that's co-productive and collaborative, and shares that, not just my experience but Emily's as well, and that just makes it better, and that will continue to grow. So I thought I'd throw that in there, Emily.
That's amazing. So not only have you come on, you've gone through this program, you've then started helping people, you've then taken it a step further when you see further opportunities to grow. That's amazing. Ellie, over to you.
Thank you to everybody else that's offered their thoughts. In true Ellie style, I have written down like loads of things.
Excellent.
that I wanted to say, and it's interesting, as I was doing that, I was kind of going, oh, okay, what's happening here? And part of what I realized is that when I start to write things down, there's a wee part of me that's maybe falling into a little bit of a lack of self-trust, or and this is something that I've been working on. Is post-traumatic growth to me has been to be able to speak from the heart, opposed to always trying to speak with my head. And however, putting stuff down on paper really helps me. So I'm trying not to judge what my process was this morning. So I think, post-traumatic growth, what I wanted to say about it was that it will look really different, I believe, for everyone. We are all completely unique people in the world, and we come with our own early life journeys. We've been born into the families that we've been born into. We've had these experiences, and so we're all completely unique. And so post-traumatic growth will be unique for everybody as well. And so what I've learned about myself, I guess, my growth has been to understand that some of my most destructive coping mechanisms, like bulimia, like alcohol abuse, numerous other things that have carried me through life, have been a really creative way to try and regulate a really dysregulated nervous system. There was reasons why I did what I did, and part of my growth has been really to understand that and actually have some grace and compassion for my process and for those things that I did that for many years I felt really deeply ashamed of. So there's been something really important around that. And actually this year, and so I'm 41 now, and I started drinking alcohol when I was 11, and I stopped drinking in January, so I've completely stopped drinking, and now now what's coming up is all sorts of other stuff because I've stopped drinking. But my growth has been just to witness that and be curious about what's coming up. And, you know, yeah, it's about witnessing and giving myself grace for that. Then, you know, just things about, you know, I had no idea who I was, like absolutely no idea who I was for such a long time. And now I feel really, really chuffed to be able to say that, you know, I've qualified as a counsellor, which maybe I always was going to do. I don't know, maybe the experiences I've had in my life, you know, brought me to this point where, you know, I can now walk alongside other people who've experienced trauma and really, really understand what's going on. And I do believe that is a gift now. It wasn't a gift when I was going through all of this really awful stuff. And again, I want to make that clear, is that I think each and every person who goes through trauma will come to the point in their own journey where they can then say, actually, that has given me gifts. And that comes from being validated, I really believe. So yeah, so I'm a counsellor, and I mountain bike in my spirit, you know, all sorts of other stuff. There's lots of different parts to me other than the trauma, is what I'm trying to say.
That's amazing, Ellie. It's quite a journey. And I write lists too. I write everything down. Everything needs to be written down before I say anything. So it's funny how you mentioned timing. And actually, Victoria, you'll know during the consultation, timing was something that came up over and over again. And like you say, everyone's unique. The timing's different for everybody. But it sounds like the timing is right for you just now, and what you're saying is amazing, and it's humbling to sit and listen to. So well done. It's brilliant. Jane Marie, over to you. So what does post-traumatic growth mean to you?
I'll need to apologise just in case one of the dogs wants to come in and starts barking.
Oh.
So, I think just kind of post-traumatic growth for me was the door of compassion opening. The compassion and safety was opening for me, and I was totally starving for it. I was going to die if I didn't get it. And like the complex post-traumatic stress has kept me very much imprisoned in my own mind for a long time, a long period in my life. And just having that revelation of post-traumatic growth, you know, even just the revelation of having these behaviours that I have, and having them explained to me, and you know, they're perfectly normal. For me to hear that is just wonderful. So I'd say that it's a real freer of shame from me, you know, intense shame, and post-traumatic growth has allowed that shame just to, you know, dissipate, just to leave. And it's wondrous, because when that's left, I can begin to look at life. I couldn't do that without the post-traumatic growth. You know, I couldn't do that without groups like this, who were advocating for it really, and opening the voice up. So that's what it's done for me really. It's gave me a voice where I can actually be heard, and I can just be myself, without, you know, because my story was like abuse all through my life and all through my womanhood. And then entering into a system that completely re-traumatized me and caused me extreme difficulty. So, you know, even like having the professional background, and for me, of not being able to work and things like that, the element of post-traumatic growth has allowed me just to step out of that, to see what my skills are. And I always knew when I was going through what I was going through as a youngster, and then as a woman, and then at the hands of the police and the criminal justice system, I always knew that you know, that those dark experiences, I would find treasures in those dark experiences, and I would be able to then shape what I wanted to do with my life. So for me, the growth is amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. You know, sometimes I'm sitting in the bus and I've got to pinch myself, because it's post-traumatic growth for me is coming from a place of absolute hopelessness to a place of kind of overcoming and having the skills to overcome. So it's been wondrous for me, and it's been lovely to meet everybody, and it's been amazing to see that there's an organisation like this where survivors are surviving and speaking, and I'm dead grateful that I've found them. So that's what post-traumatic growth means for me.
It's amazing. Thanks, Jane Marie. I think what you said there that struck me is that it's somewhere that you can be yourself, and that's a right that everyone should have. Everyone should be able to just be themselves without being judged or worried. So that's amazing. So actually, before I started doing the post-traumatic growth social media for survivors, I'd asked Ashley to explain what it was so that we could get it all right. And it's really nice actually to hear everyone's different points of view, and it's good to be able to go and share that on the social afterwards and learn, like for me to learn a lot about it as well. And it's amazing. It's like, I always find these panel events like the most amazing things to host because everyone's on it. It's just enlightens you. So going on to the next question. So what would you say to other survivors about the benefits of post-traumatic growth and what impact it's had on you? So there's a little bit of crossover here from what it means to you, but if you were to speak to somebody who hasn't started post-traumatic growth, what would you say to a survivor? So we'll do the same order. We'll start with you, Ashley.
I think I would say that it would change your life. I think opening your eyes to the possibility that you can grow beyond your trauma, that you don't need to let it define you, and that people talk about a light at the end of the tunnel all the time, right? But for me, post-traumatic growth is that light. When you get to that, when you finally reach the light, because it exists. You look at Shumela, you look at Emily, myself, we sit here because we've went through the darkness, and we've been as low as we can possibly go, and there's been no other way but back up. Unfortunately, for some survivors, it becomes a cycle where you get some support, you go through 6 or 8 weeks counselling, you start to scratch the surface a wee bit, but then your sessions come to an end, and then you're all right for a wee bit, and then you go right back into that negative cycle, those negative behaviours, that negative attitude. For me, having that, if I was speaking to a survivor now, I would say to break that cycle, open your mind to the possibility of change. Open your mind to the possibility of discovering who you are as an individual, not who you were. I hear it all the time. People say, I want to be the person I used to be. Why? Why be the person you used to be when you can be the person you are now, when you can wholeheartedly look inside and recognise that every single experience that you've faced has brought you a nugget of wisdom that you can go on and you can use to not only help yourself, but if you can change it for somebody else who doesn't recognise post-traumatic growth and the impact that it can have on them, or indeed that there is growth beyond post-traumatic stress disorder, because we hear it all the time, PTSD, it's bandied about right, left and centre. You never hear people talk about the positive aspects of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is the post-traumatic growth. And I think if people can look inside and they can hear the stories that have been shared, then they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We are the light, we are the beacons of light. And if you can get towards that and you can touch that light, then you're on the start of your post-traumatic growth process. And it is about fully honing every experience you've ever had and turning it on its head and choosing to define it rather than it defining you.
Amazing. Thanks, Ashley. Shumela.
Yeah, it's really difficult to follow Ashley when she speaks. I completely agree with everything Ashley said, and again, I'm quite a reflective person, and I'm reflecting on what I said before, and I'll very much, you know, a repeat of that. But also, I think it's important for people to remember that it is individual. You know, I love what you said, Ellie. It's very unique to you, and again, that's how I feel about resilience. So I didn't understand resilience until I really understood it. People used to say to me all the time I was dead resilient, and it, you know, it would just kind of fall off my back, kind of. Would be like, whatever, until I really understood resilience, you know, and that was about 10 years ago that journey began for me. And then I took ownership of that word, and it really empowered me. So it did. And I feel the same about post-traumatic growth, because that was also a term that other people assigned to me before I fully understood it. And my work has allowed me to really deeply understand both trauma and, you know, its impact and what can come from it. And actually, just to say to people, it was the most traumatic thing that happened to me that was the catalyst for everything that's kind of came after and where I am now. And so when you're in that time of thinking, you know, that it is extremely dark, that nothing worse could happen, I think the best advice or thing I could say to survivors is that feeling does pass. It does pass. And it's unbelievable that something so devastating can be the absolute fuel to drive you into so many things in areas. And so, you know, hold on to the fact that, you know, it will pass and there is something better. That light at the end of the tunnel really is possible. But also don't put too much pressure on yourself. You know, don't compare yourself to other people around you and how well they are doing. You know, it's very much your journey. And you should feel empowered, not disempowered. And if you're, you know, measuring yourself up against how other people are growing, how fast they're doing it, or in what way, you know, it's not a good place to be. And so really, you know, it's yours, it's your journey and very personal to you, and you should feel empowered by that.
Thanks, Shumela. Emily.
Hi, thanks, Heather. Wow, it's really hard to follow Ashley and Shamila. But what I will say is that I agree with what's already been said, and also that there's a lot of people who say, I don't want this. Why is this happening to me? And please just take it away. I also help out and manage the peer groups. And I read a story. We're into our stories and poems in the creative writing group. And I read a story, and it was powerful to me at the time, where this person was watching a butterfly. It was a caterpillar in a cocoon, and they'd been watching the cocoon, and then they saw it emerge, and it looked as if the butterfly had got stuck because it was a tiny hole it was trying to get out of. So they cut the cocoon open, and it stopped the natural process, and therefore actually stunted the growth of the butterfly. And I think that it's important to mention that, because for me, I recognize that was me. It was Ashley said it, you know, we're in a very conformist society where it's almost, you've suffered trauma, take a pill, here's 6 sessions, 8 sessions, and you'll be fine. And of course, you're not fine. You have to allow that process its natural course. And as Shumela said, that's different for everybody. You can't become a butterfly unless you go through all these different difficult stages, and it's the process that it is meant to be for you.
I love that analogy. That's brilliant. Thank you, Emily. Ellie.
Okay. What is the question again? So it's
if you had a message to survivors about post-traumatic growth, so what would you say to survivors about the benefits and the impact it's had on you?
Sorry, that's so I've also been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and actually that was a revelation and revolution for me. In my sort of experience, there's nothing else that's come close to describing what I've been going through, and I don't relate what I go through, I don't relate to that as an illness, and that's my personal, that's my personal journey. If somebody else does relate to it as an illness, then absolutely cool. But yeah, so sometimes I go offline is basically what I'm trying to say. So yeah, just what I've found, the word that comes up for me all the time about growth and healing, healing trauma is reclamation. I like, you know, there's a lot of words that begin with R that I love. So revolution and reclamation and there's all sorts of other ones, and I've got them written down. But anyway, so reclaiming what was taken, reclaiming what was lost, reclaiming language, you know, reclaiming my body, you know, reclaiming my voice. It just seems so perfect to me. And you know, I would say that to other people who have experienced, you know, any form of violence or trauma, is that there is a possibility of reclamation, and it's a process. You know, again, in my experience, it doesn't happen overnight. It is, yeah, everything is a process, and sometimes I feel like I've reclaimed like everything that I need to reclaim about myself, and then you know, and then I'll spiral into feeling like I'm completely back at the very start of my journey again, and that can feel really painful. But again, it's not the case. You know, when I can come back to feeling sort of grounded in the present, which is another part of post-traumatic growth, I believe, is being able to connect into the present moment, because trauma completely takes that away. It's, you know, it's really hard to live, and it's actually a privilege, I think, to live in the present moment when you've experienced trauma, is that just to know that you can come back to a space of being okay, and being connected to other people who get it, because again, you know, the experience of trauma is disconnection. It completely takes us away from other people, and a really painful result of trauma is loneliness and isolation, and again, what I'd say to other people is really, you know, find people, seek out people who have been through similar experiences, because it's just has been so important to have that mirror come back to say, actually, do you know what, you're inherently worthy the way you are, and yeah.
Wow.
That's probably enough.
Thanks, Ellie. That's amazing. Jane Marie.
I would probably say that, Ellie, following on for your R words, it's like restoration, you know, just restoring everything that has been taken, like my identity, everything, absolutely everything. And if I was explaining that to somebody else, I would probably say it's life-saving, you know, it's life-saving and it's life-changing. And it's a period of transformation that's just so immense. It comes from, I've read loads and loads of different quotes that have said that beauty from the darkness, you know, it comes from a place of darkness where the process that you have to go through, or the process that I had to go through with complex post-traumatic stress, was just somebody telling me about it, you know, somebody coming and saying, this is what it is, and you've got it. And so it would be like that with somebody if I was, you know, if I was passing on the message about it, it's just knowing what's there and knowing how to deal with it, and learning about how to deal with it, you know, and turning that trauma into opportunity for like other people, you know, to see that when they're sitting in that place of utter hopelessness, that once they find out what it is, how they interact with the world is different, and how to manage that, you know, once they find out. I think the key for me was just knowledge. It's no surprise that it's like trauma wisdom, because it is wisdom that's passed on from people. And I would say also to somebody else, you know, it's the key to open the door to freedom. It's the key to just get out of that place of darkness and come into the light. And so I'd say the benefits for me are they're definitely life-saving, because I don't think I would have been here if I hadn't heard the words spoken to me and what it was I was suffering from to bring me out of that torment. So for me, it's definitely been life-saving as well as life-changing. And I would be letting somebody know that it's the best decision. You know, it's the scariest decision and the most frightening decision to step into that healing. But I would also be saying to them, you know, you're not doing it alone. There are people out there who script and will help you and will walk beside you, and the benefits are just, you know, I can't find a word in the English dictionary to describe the benefits of trauma growth, trauma informed practice, and just being aware of what it is that what's wrong with us, really. That's all for me, I think.
Thanks, Jane Marie. And I think that is a message everyone should take from this, is that nobody is alone. Like, people can come and to Thriving Survivors and speak to people and, you know, learn what the next step is. So Ashley, we'll finish up with you. So we've gone through post-traumatic growth this month. We've got quite a lot of content still to share. What's next? Tell us what next month. Oh, you're on mute. Yes, we got it in there. Someone had to be on mute.
What's to be the most well-used phrase of the lockdown, Hannah? You're on mute. It's like, so in terms of what's next, I think my instant reaction to that is watch this space. There's a lot happening in the background, but with particular survivors' voices, next month we are going to look at trauma-informed approaches from a survivor's point of view. So this will include conversations, hopefully with Crown Prosecutor. I'm hoping to have conversations with Nez and see if we can get somebody in to actually come and participate in a panel session and really just educate us on what is available, how was it constructed in Scotland, and more importantly, what do survivors think is lacking right now. So we will look at Nez, we will look at what's available, but then we're actually going to go and look at, well, is that our experience of trauma informed? Is that what happens when we go to the dentist? Is that what happens when we speak to the receptionist on the phone? What about the head teacher who speaks to you because actually your son was late for school this morning? Let's get to the root of that. Let's actually find out how many people in the country are actually trauma informed, properly trauma informed, where it is reflective of a survivor's experience, because I think you're going to see this is what it should look like, but this is what it's actually like. And then we're going to challenge, well, how do we fix that? And I'm hoping Shumela will be a big part of that conversation as well. I know Shumela's looking to come in, so I'll keep this brief, but certainly next month we really start to get to the nitty-gritty of a survivor's journey, right from that first interaction with your 999 caller, to the first interaction with a police officer that takes your statement, to the doctor who you need to go and see to get your tests done and all these other things that need to happen, right down to the dentist, the head teacher. How does that work? Do people actually fully understand trauma-informed approaches? And if they don't, then how are we going to change that? So I'm hoping next month's going to be a real month of, this is what the problem is, but this is where we really start to challenge what's happening now and changing it, because we've got an army of survivors here that want to be heard, that want to influence, and that want to deliver trauma-informed training. So it needs to be heard. People need to listen to what they've got to say, and that's how we'll see change come. So yeah,
exciting. Do you know, I'm looking forward to that. It sounds good. It sounds like a lot of content and a lot of bringing a lot of different people involved, which is a great. Shumela.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on the back of what Jane Marie was saying, which was great, and just when she finished off what she said about thinking about what's wrong with us. And so, you know, the first key lesson in trauma-informed practice is we don't say that anymore. We say what happened to us or what happened to them, you know, and that's one of the fundamentals. And that was one of the fundamentals actually for me really changing my thinking, because I did think something was wrong with me for a long, long time. And now, even when I still have those wee moments like you do, and you do something, you go, I mean, and then another voice comes and it says, Shumela, that's what happened. It's what happened. And that's the validity that Ellie was talking about. And that is what the power of trauma-informed practice will do, hopefully, once everybody's up to spec. But this is a journey. It's not a destination. We're on a long, very long and difficult journey with trauma-informed practice. So I'd be really excited to explore that with you next month. But there's nothing wrong with us. It's what happened to us. I just wanted to leave people with that last wee thought before we go off air.
Excellent. Ellie, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, I just again, just on that for years I believed that there was something really wrong with me in the world, and you know, why was I so sensitive to things, and why was I getting triggered by so many things? And it sort of links into the trauma-informed practice and trauma-informed world that I would love to see happen. Is that we, you know, for people who have experienced trauma, and actually most of us have, so I want to just put that you know, out there. You know, there's so many of us walking around who've experienced trauma and we maybe don't even realize it. But you know, language matters. You know, like, you know, when we live in a society that doesn't see trauma and doesn't actually come to us. You know, it's always felt like I've had to adapt to a society that actually is not conducive to humanity. And yeah, I just wanted to say that really it's, you know, it has helped me understand that there's some things in our environment that we live around that actually it's not our fault. There's nothing wrong with some of these experiences and some of these ways that we might relate to something.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it'll be a really interesting subject to go through, and I look forward to seeing it developing, because, you know, people are going through their own trauma, their own journeys, and it's not right that day-to-day experiences will make that worse for people. So it'll be interesting to look into it in more detail. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming on the panel and sharing. It was great. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that everyone watching has taken something from it. And if you want to know more about post-traumatic growth or about thriving survivors, you can get in touch through social media. We're on all platforms. And actually, we'll be back the end of next month to talk about our next topic.
Yes, is it the end of this month, Heather? Yeah,
this is June, so July, end of July.
July. Yes, we'll be back end of July with our post-traumatic growth, our trauma-informed panel, and hopefully again we'll have Shumela and hopefully somebody from NES in there as well, maybe a police officer and somebody for the Crown Prosecutor Service. So I'm looking to really pull in some big guns for the next panel. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next month. It'll be good.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks everybody for watching.